of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Adesina, says there's been a consensus after a survey that the High Five development strategy, which was instituted back in 2016 when he took office as the head of the institution, has been approved to continue.
When we had to now do the new 10-year strategy, our board of directors asked us to go ask the countries whether they want to continue the high fives that we've been doing so well on. And so we went, because we are a very consultative organization. And we ran surveys, we had town hall meetings, we went all over Africa. You guess what the countries told us? Go back and keep doing the high fives. Because the high fives, they consider them to be accelerators of Africa's development. We're not there where we need to be. But with the high fives, we will get there. Because even the United Nations Development Program agreed that if Africa were to run those high fives, Africa will achieve 90% of the Sustainable Development Goals. And Africa will also achieve 90% of the Agenda 2063, which is the Africa we want of the African Union.
The head of the African Development Bank also says that this art of the new AFCFTA should be industrial manufacturing. He says that African continents would just not continue trading with each other, but you need to focus on industrial manufacturing, which has to be backed by food, energy, power, infrastructure, investment. He also wants African leaders and international financial institutions to restructure Africa's debt faster and much more quicker.
We need to turn that Africa Continental Free Trade Area potential into reality. And to do that requires that we have industrial policies that will allow us to have industrial manufacturing that allows us to specialize in value chains in which we have comparative advantage, both for national, regional, and global markets. Now, if we don't, it will be a very bad mistake, because simply trading is not enough. It's not the first time we've been trading. We've been trading forever. Our great-great-great-great-grandfathers were trading. But if I am trading with you, maize, and you're trading with me, sorghum, in a free trade zone, both of us are going to be both competitively and efficiently poor, because we are not moving into manufacturing. And so I'm saying that because industrial manufacturing must be at the core of that Africa's economic transformation. And that must be because it is an outbound-looking, outward-looking industrial manufacturing stance that allows Africa to expand its exports around the world. And so when I think about infrastructure at the bank, it's not just about, I want to connect that village to that village. No. What are the corridors? What are the strategic infrastructure platforms we must have that will allow Africa to stand strong and be competitive? And that's what we are doing at the African Development Bank. I'll give you a few examples of some of those. Take, for example, the Lobito Corridor. The Lobito Corridor is a corridor that is linking Angola to Zambia and linking it to DRC Congo. And that's a corridor in which the African Development Bank is putting in $500 million on the Zambia side to be able to construct that particular corridor, working very closely with the US government and the Africa Finance Corporation. Take, for example, the Lagos-Abidjan Highway, $15.6 billion. We've mobilized all of that, interest for it, commitment to it, to be able to do it. Think about the Central Corridor for railway, linking Tanzania all the way to Burundi and DRC. That's about almost $3.5 or $3.4 billion that we are trying to raise to make it happen for them.
Now, the annual meetings of the Afdb also has on the sideline this Monday the annual meetings of the Association of African Development Finance Institutions. And they've got a number of sessions that spoke to the role that the DFIs across the continent play in supporting innovative financing for energy, infrastructure, healthcare, education on the continent.
One of the issues that we are really hammering upon our members is governance, governance, which is very, very key. One of the issues that is really troubling a lot of people around the DFRs across Africa is around the governance structures and those DFRs. And it is one of the issues that we really focus on around the PSGR as our rating instruments that we do, that we actually ask our members to self-rate themselves and improve the governance structures. Once that is done, then once you have the right governance framework, we can then be able to look at the development impact of the DFRs. And we've got different types of DFRs when we rank them different. We've got the bigger ones, the multilateral ones, and the smaller ones. And the smaller ones learn from the bigger ones. I'm happy that now we see a lot more other bigger DFRs getting involved in infrastructure development across Africa. I mean, if there's no infrastructure, you can't start talking about digitization as an example. You need to have the relevant enabling environment around infrastructure development. So we're on the right path. A lot more DFRs in terms of the governments that are supporting it, that are supporting the DFRs, and it's important for shareholders, in this case government, to support the respective DFRs, because without that political support, they will not be able to achieve their strategies.
Let me also mention the host country session, which was held with the cabinet minister in charge of Treasury and National Planning here in Kenya, and he spoke about at the auditorium about the key issues being faced in financing investment and infrastructure across Africa using philanthropy, talking about different forms of institutions that could support the African economic transformation.
We want to see what is happening to our education sector, what is happening to our health sector, and more so health infrastructure that had been tested in 2019, 2020, in 2020, by COVID-19, the health infrastructure. And the third one is also to look at why do we neglect labor market when we are talking about human capital. The labor market itself is very, very important conduit in terms of what expertise is all about in the labor market and the functioning of the labor market. And fourth, how do we connect nutrition outcomes? I told myself that whichever way you start, and you are looking at human capital, you have to connect the dots in those four areas. And that's why I thought they were very, very important. I think people from AERC, KIPRA, and even IDS in Kenya are able to talk about those subject matter very well. Because they were involved in this, I made sure that we connect the networks. I do believe it becomes important, but let me mention 2 points that are very, very important. One of them, why we find our own developing economies in Africa lagging behind, is the quality of institutions and leadership in those institutions. And we do believe that if you don't have a human capital expertise, we are going to lag behind.
Yes, the whole conversation around Africa's economic transformation and the global financial architecture reform will continue for the rest of this week, including other topical issues, including industry, jobs, wealth creation, as well as the formal annual meeting of the Afdb itself. Reporting from Nairobi at the KICC Center for Arise News, I am Adesina.